And I think part of that active engagement and the reason why this particular method is just seems to be having like really miraculous results, instantaneous results, is because what's happening in the process of our evolution towards ascension is we are being called to take ultimate responsibility for every single thing that happens to us, in an awareness that we are not just fractalized aspects of source consciousness, but that we are one with everything. Okay, we're on the hour, so I'm going to begin. So today what I thought we'd do is we sort of practice in relationship to the video that I posted on YouTube about a week ago, which was an answer to a question. Someone asked me, what can they do with their young adult child who makes bad decisions, basically. And so I imparted to them this technique, which we're going to practice together now, and which I tried a few times with kind of quite astonishing results. But what doing the video prompted me to do was to kind of start using it with more people in my vicinity, particularly people who were like driving me nuts with their kind of self-sabotaging behavior. And I have to say, I've witnessed some miraculous shifts, like behaviors for 35 years suddenly changing, you know, like instantaneously. I've just really have experienced miraculous results. So I thought we would like practice this, and I'm going to keep trying, and with more people. And so what I wanted to say about this technique, and I really wanted this to be a kind of interactive session so that you all really get the technique if you want to speak. And if all of you are willing, and no one's shared too much personal stuff, but we'll check at the end. So don't let this stop you from speaking. I will put it on YouTube. But if one of you doesn't want it on YouTube, then you'll just email me and it won't go up. But obviously it's going up on Patreon. So just be mindful of that when you're asking questions, because we're talking about our personal relationships. So basically, I think one of the reasons why this practice I'm finding so effective, and why I think you'll find it so effective, and why other people who are becoming more consciously aware will find it effective, is that something I think we've all noticed is that manifesting is speeding up, and synchronicities are speeding up kind of exponentially. So in other words, the manifesting time lag, which used to exist on this planet, is kind of disappearing because we're elevating in our consciousness, because the consciousness of the planet is ascending towards a higher dimensional consciousness, which is headed towards oneness, having come out of, we're coming out of polarity. Basically, there's something going on where the contrast of polarity is merging into oneness. And so because that's happening, the time lag of manifesting that we were given, you know, like toddlers, spiritual toddlers, stumbling around, making all of our mistakes and everything, is slowly disappearing. But it's disappearing as a whole for the planetary consciousness, but it's disappearing because we're all on our own timeline realities as well, more speedily if you are actively engaged in your inner work, which all of us are at. Obviously we're all at different levels, but we're all actively engaged. And I think part of that active engagement, and the reason why this particular method is just seems to be having like really miraculous results, instantaneous results, is because what's happening in the process of our evolution towards ascension is we are being called to take ultimate responsibility for every single thing that happens to us, in an awareness that we are not just fractalized aspects of source consciousness, but that we are one with everything. And the road of this ascension is that if you like, we are on the way back up towards oneness. It's like we hit rock bottom, right? And now we're on our way back towards oneness. So we kind of went right down into the fractalized aspect, and now we're on our way back. And in order to go back, we have to take the ultimate responsibility, and that everything is an aspect of us, or all of those other pieces, people and experiences, but we're talking about people, so we'll leave it with people. All of those other people are expressing aspects of us, basically, because this reality is a mirror. It is literally a mirror. And the reason it's a mirror, and I'm going to go over this again because it's important for this technique, is that we are in this sphere, electromagnetic biofield. We're in this sphere, which is not just our energy emanating from us, but which is literally the field of our reality. So that sphere holds all of the information and light pertaining to our reality. Now, we think that the person that we're living with, for example, is in the same reality, but they're not. They're in their own biofield. And the reason that we can have correlating experiences, or for example, me and the person I live with can both look out of the window and see the same tree, is because we're holding resonant frequencies pertaining to what our perspectives about our reality actually are. Okay. But the truth is that the person living with me is seeing the tree from a slightly different perspective. But because we're holding resonant frequencies on so many levels, which are probably infinite, that I can't even go into, we're sort of seeing a similar tree. Let's put it that way. But you can have the same experience, or a clown can do a 5-minute skit in front of all of us, and we will all see something different. And that's why truth is a very bizarre, sort of fluctuating thing. You know, and the whole ethos of my channel is, you know, find the truth of who you are. And that's all we have available to us, because the truth that's out there is only exists in relationship to who we think we are. That it's a wave. It's not a particle. It's not some fixed truth. It just can't be that. So that's really important to understand. So let's say, for example, you know, I'm living with my husband, obviously, so I use him as an example. So let's say I'm living with my husband, which I am, and what's happening is he is always in all of his behaviors in my biofield reflecting aspects of me. So that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the me version in all of his behaviors. So if he starts to exhibit a behavior that drives me nuts or winds me up, or I think is not loving, or whatever it is, you know, you've all got husbands and wives, so you all know what it's like trying to live with someone for years and years and years. There's always moments where they're driving you nuts. So if he's doing something that's driving me nuts, let's say, I'll just pick something general. Let's say, I don't know, he's feeling very angry. He doesn't want to talk about it. I don't know, I'm just picking something. So what he's doing is he's reflecting something in me that is either holding on to anger, or being a victim to anger, or an aspect of myself where I'm not expressing myself clearly, where I'm choosing not to be in relationship to someone else. There could be like a lot of things going on in one behavior. And generally, our first response to something like this is to go, I can't believe he's doing that, and just sort of to start projecting it back. So I can't believe he's doing that. I'm doing it all the right way. He's doing it all wrong. Or to start getting angry yourself, or to fall into victim mode, or to go into corner and sulk, or whatever it is, you know, our unconscious behaviors are when we're faced with something that makes us uncomfortable, a trigger, basically. Okay. But what I've discovered with this technique is that actually, if you can look at the person and refocus your trigger towards love, their behavior will just instantaneously change. And I'm going to tell you why quickly. There are, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to explain to you that there are an infinite number versions of my husband on infinite timelines. We're going to just pretend for a moment that there's only one version of me, otherwise this gets so you can't. Anyway, there's one version of me and there's infinite my husbands. Okay, so everything in this reality is only there to evolve us. So all the versions of him are teaching tools. They're literally like mini courses. Okay, so the version I'm seeing, let's say it's an angry, doesn't want to talk version, is trying to teach me something. It's a reflection of something that I'm holding within myself that I need to heal or understand about myself and shift towards my own evolution of consciousness. So that's why it shows up. That's the first thing you have to understand. It's showing up as a teaching tool. They're not doing it to wind you up, particularly, although it might feel like it. They're showing up because it's your reality and you came here to evolve. Okay, that's a whole nother conversation, but let's just make that assumption. So basically, in the infinite versions of him, I've chosen this one to teach me something because I haven't learned or healed from it yet. So I'm seeing this version of me, and what it's doing is it's calling me to, at the very least, acknowledge that I must be holding a resonant frequency to this version somewhere within me. Now, what this technique does is you don't need to go into the trauma of that in here to change this version. I think at this point in our evolution, because we're sort of on a trajectory of constant inner awareness and inner dealing with our triggers, working with our trauma, taking responsibility for who we are, trying to be present in all of those moments. We don't necessarily have to go right into the trauma. But of course, if you don't go right into the trauma at some point and heal it, another version is going to turn up. So, you know, all these versions are going to keep turning up until you can heal the actual thing. So I'm not negating the process that you will need to do to heal the trauma. But having said that, all trauma and all triggers are healed through the act of attention and love, of which this method is a part. It's a part. It's an act of love, this method. Okay, so you're not negating the work you have to do, but part of the work you have to do is love. So what we do is you see the behavior in the other that's winding you up, and you acknowledge, I must be holding a resonant frequency to that. What am I going to do about it? Because this is just driving me nuts. So the method, which we're going to go through in a moment, and we're going to choose real world people and real world situations for you to work with so that we can, you know, really get to grips with this. So the method is to go into, is to sort of see this person's behavior and to go into your heart center and find the contrast to that. But the contrast is always, the simplest contrast is always to say, how am I loving myself? And I'm so grateful to myself for the way that I'm loving myself. And all of us on our inner spiritual journey are really coming to grips with self-love now. So I would go, wow, Sarita, you know, you're always detoxing, you're always looking after your body. You've really stepped into work that you love, which is genuinely assisting others. I show up with love because I recognize that everyone is an aspect of me. I look in the mirror these days and I tell myself that I'm beautiful instead of telling myself that I'm ugly. You know, like all of the ways that you show up for yourself, whatever they may be. And most of us at this stage are pretty good at loving ourselves. That's why we're even on the Zoom call, isn't it? So you start going through that until you're in a really heart-centered space and you're just like so grateful for how you're loving yourself. And then what you do is you hold the person in front of you, and because you're in a heart-centered space, this is easier. You start to thank them. So you start to express gratitude in the present moment, so it's already done, the way that they are expressing love for themselves. So even if it's something, let's say that you're dealing with anger, you can say, gosh, I really appreciate that you're trying to express yourself. Or that you're allowing yourself to be who you are, but you're not just thinking about the behavior that's driving you nuts. You start to look at them as a whole person and go, of course you're trying to love yourself, because ultimately that's what we're all doing here. So this is a kind of a given with every single person on the planet. So even if you're dealing with, the original question was someone who was a young adult, so basically a teenager, their behaviors are always them trying to love themselves, even if they're doing, you know, things that we would think were awful, like go, you know, of course we didn't back in those days, but let's say going to all-night parties and taking drugs and trying to connect with other people or rebelling against us or whatever teenagers do, they're actually trying to love themselves, or they're ignoring you because, you know, you've said or done something wrong and they're trying to sort of stand in their power or whatever they're doing. All of those strange behaviors that obviously, because we're in a different place from them, seem to trigger us. All of those behaviors and all of the behaviors actually of every person on this planet is a way back to love. Because we're all trying to go back to the one, to oneness, basically. So you start to look at this person, you start to really thank them for all the ways that they love themselves. And you start with the triggering thing that they're doing. But then you sort of end up saying, you know, oh, I love that you know, spend time in the garden. And I love that you stroke your animals. And I love that you do this for yourself and you care for yourself in that way, and you speak these words and you do. So you start to really go into it and you start to really, in a state of gratitude, thank them. But you're not just thanking them. This is the final piece. You're thanking them for being the perfect reflection, the mirror of how much you love yourself. So basically what you're kind of doing is you're looking in the mirror again and you're thanking yourself for loving yourself. But this is the reflection. So you go, literally the words are, thank you so much. You know, there's something like this. Thank you so much for being the perfect reflection of how much I'm really loving myself. And because we are all on the path, I'll just wipe my microphone, because we're all on the path of really loving ourselves, I can genuinely, hand on heart, say I'm on that path now. There's a real genuine gratitude in this. And then you just let it go. And then literally in the next 2 minutes, they're going to do something which is just completely going to change the landscape of what's been going on before. It's just extraordinary what I'm witnessing. So that's the technique, and that's why that technique works. And because you've thanked them for being the perfect reflection of how much you love yourself, the reflection that was the, if you like, the anger not facing up to something, timeline reflection leaves your biofield, and the husband version of you that is the perfect reflection of how much you love yourself comes into your timeline. That's the thing, because you've shifted your frequency and your perception into absolute, I'm thanking everything in my field that is a reflection to how much I love myself. Hand on heart, I can say I love myself. That person, the person who's on the, if you like, a negative timeline just goes out, and in the next instant, the one that's on a loving timeline just comes in like this, because in every now moment, your entire universe, your brain is building an entire new universe that is the reflection of the resonant frequency that you're holding in the next now moment. And what we normally do is we're normally in the familiar. So, can't believe that person's angry and not talking to me again, or whatever the thing is. And so the next now moment, the same person can't believe they're angry in the next now moment. And that could go on for 20 minutes, right? Until, I don't know, something happens in your field, like, I don't know, it's supper time, or somebody knocks on the door, or something happens that perpetually slightly shifts the familiar in your reality, until the one that you're arguing with or whatever slightly shifts in their reality, because they're a reflection of your reality. And eventually the argument changes or whatever, and the different person comes in. So what you're dealing with is like infinite versions of this person that you think is one person. And they sort of are, but they're not really. So I hope I've explained that. But it's very complicated. And you don't really need to understand that there are infinite versions of them. We don't really need to understand on an intellectual or physicist level how that works. What we really need is proof of the pudding, which is that if you can thank someone for being the perfect loving reflection of yourself, they suddenly become the perfect loving reflection of yourself. So basically the proof is in the experience that you have in the next now moment with them. Does that all make sense? And are there any questions about that so far? I hope I've explained that. It's kind of complicated, but it kind of isn't. Any questions?
Can I ask a question, Sarita?
Yeah, wait a minute. I can't see
Christine.
you. There you are. Wait a minute. Where have you gone? Sorry, I'm just scrolling across the top. Oh, there you are. You're waving. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Please ask a question.
Wow. Yeah. So made perfect total sense to me. Had a few insights. Curious on your thoughts on these insights. My thoughts are that nobody does anything that's not in their highest good, that they're doing something for whatever reason. That doesn't mean I need to understand it. But, and the other question I have when you're talking about timelines, so when I bring this into my biofield,
yeah, sphere, whatever you want to call
it. Biosphere, yeah. So am I jumping timelines to meet that other person who is now the person that I resonate with?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really, to be honest with you, I haven't really got a grasp of what I'm doing in that sense, because I think I can't get my head around this one. It's too much. So the way I try and look at my reality is that I'm aware that I'm potentially living on infinite timelines, but that every time I heal something in one timeline, it is healed in all. Because, of course, we are quantumly interconnected. You know, we're interconnected with everything, but of course it's not that we're more interconnected with ourselves, but we can only really deal with ourselves, let's say. So I'm aware that every time I do a practice or go through a ceremony or I heal myself in some way, I am affecting all of those other timelines. And what I can say to you is that there must be infinite fractalized aspects of me on infinite timelines, okay, that have chosen to have all of these different experiences, and that we're all heading back, hopefully at this stage, although some might not be heading back yet, I don't know, towards the one. And at some point, I will reconnect with all of these aspects of myself. And I do know that this version of me, one of the things that I'm trying to do is, as I heal my trauma, is to recall all the soul parts of me that have been lost. Okay. So that's kind of like, I have talked about this in various videos. I don't even know where they are, but I know I've spoken about this with people. So, and that's part of things like depossession, you know, healing the trauma. As the soul parts come back and you're more integrated into yourself with wholeness, what will happen is you'll meet less and less versions of the relationships that you're having, of people who are more, you'll see more and more of them that are more whole, because they're reflecting you. So this kind of work gets easier and easier, and therefore your life becomes more of a pleasure. So what I perceive is that you have less and less difficult relationship or challenging relationships, or even if they're choosing to have difficult lives, you're less triggered by it and more able to hold, you know, kindness and compassion without being triggered, even if they're very close to you. So I can't remember what the question was, but I think I've answered that one. What was the first
thank you.
thing that you said that wasn't quite a question?
You know, I said that everybody
yes,
behaves in their highest good.
Yeah.
And that has given me some ability of not reacting, because not taking it personally. Because if they're doing it, they must be doing it for their own reason, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's very beautiful. And if you can manage not to be triggered by it, then it means that you've healed that aspect within yourself. But if you are actually just using that spiritual teaching to suppress your feelings, let's say.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, which we all do. Then
I'm not saying it works every time.
Yeah, exactly. So then you're going to get more of that in your field until you heal that. Yeah. So of course we've all gone down that road, and that's a little bit of the love light thing, right? And that's why I want to very clearly delineate that this practice is very loving and extraordinary and shows that you're a manifesting creator, but it does not negate that you need to do your trauma work and your shadow work, basically. But it is one way of because the truth is the more loving we can be to ourselves and towards others, the easier it is to allow ourselves to be who we are in whatever trauma we're holding, you know, and to admit, yeah, actually we're suppressing that because it's a hell of a trigger or whatever the thing is. So yeah, great questions. Has that helped a bit? Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. So what I suggest we do now is basically try it. And we can try it with a couple of different people and a couple of different scenarios. And then, well, we'll try it once and just see if anyone's got any questions. And then we'll go, we'll carry on from there. So can you all think of someone that is driving you nuts for some reason? Okay, who's exhibiting some kind of behavior? Actually, it's probably good to try this with someone who's exhibiting a behavior that they do over and over again, the same kind of self-sabotaging or whatever it is behavior that's driving you nuts. Okay, so you've all got one of those kind of people in mind. So let's just close our eyes and bring that person up. in front of you. Okay, so you're holding that person in your mind's eye. And I want you to just kind of look at the behavior, if you like, and acknowledge that it is driving you nuts. You know, it's upsetting you, it's challenging you, it's irritating you, it's making you angry, whatever it's doing. So just take a moment and go over their behavior and really see them doing that behavior in your mind's eye. And you're really trying to also recall all of the details of their face, you know, and their gestures, their voice. So they're really kind of clear in front of you. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask you to sort of keep them in front of you in your mind's eye, but now drop your awareness into your heart center. And to get really heart centered, I'm going to invite you to just begin to breathe into your heart center. And it can help sometimes to place a hand upon your heart center. So you've dropped your awareness out of your mind and into your heart center. You're becoming conscious in your heart center. And as you become conscious in your heart center, I'm inviting you to begin to list, if you like, and look at and feel into and think about all the ways that you love yourself and you show up for yourself now with love. All the different ways, from the physical to the mental to the emotional to the spiritual. So you're breathing into your heart center. You're beginning to allow yourself to really think about how you love yourself. What do you do for yourself that's so loving? And really begin to acknowledge here how grateful you are to you. Let this frequency of gratitude and love begin to fill you up. And you can even look back over the years and just notice how far you've come with loving yourself. What an amazing journey. Look where you are now. And hand on heart, you can really tell yourself that genuinely you have made a huge effort to love yourself. And as you sit in this feeling of self-love, you're going to now bring your awareness back to the image of the person that you're working with. I want you to start to list and see all the ways that they are showing up with love for themselves, even if the ways are tiny. Even if the ways are maybe to cover up fear, or they just don't know how to do it another way. But they are trying to love themselves, as every human is ultimately trying. Perhaps they're just driving you nuts to get your attention because they need a little bit of attention. That's loving themselves. Perhaps they're trying to soothe themselves in very extraordinary ways, but they're trying to soothe themselves, or to carve a different path, or to just rest in the familiar so they can feel safe. Whatever they're doing, you're looking at their behaviors and you're seeing that they really are trying to love themselves. You're seeing if you can find some little ways that perhaps you haven't noticed before about their behaviors that are actually really, really loving towards themselves. Perhaps they make themselves a good breakfast every day. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Perhaps they walk. And so you now begin to see that they are actually loving themselves. And so I invite you now to perceive that you are kind of standing opposite one another. And they're loving themselves, which is a reflection of you loving yourself, which is a reflection of them loving themselves. So you begin to see the relationship that is between you, which is based in love. The reflection that's between you based in love. You might both be exhibiting different behaviors, but you're both exhibiting loving behaviors. And now I want you to, in some way, thank this person for being the perfect reflection to you of how much you love yourself. They're a perfect reflection of that. Such gratitude for that reflection of love. Thank you for reflecting to me, for being the perfect mirror to me about how much I love myself. And then when you've really felt that moment of gratitude, you can just let it go, completely let it go, and open your eyes and come back into the room. Okay, so quick, so simple. Does anyone have a question about that technique or anything else that came up during that? Franco?
Not a question, Sarita, but just a comment. I've done different types of that exercise in the past, but that was just so powerful, particularly the loving myself first, because it created within me a capacity for expanded and deepened empathy and compassion, which then, when that was then projected onto the other person, which was my mum, because she's the person I always have this challenge with on an ongoing basis. It was just so powerful. I really felt our hearts connecting in a way that when I've tried different versions of that process in the past using different modalities, it just hasn't. And so I just wanted to share how powerful that was.
Yeah, thank you, Franco. And in fact, you got the word is compassion. It's you suddenly see that they are actually trying to love themselves. It's like it's just compassion. Just exactly.
Yeah, and in that moment, it's almost like I became the parent as well, because you just see that I see she's, although she's been stuck in this loop for decades, most of her life, I'm like, oh, she's just doing the best she can to love herself. I really felt it though. Yeah, it's so powerful.
Yeah, and the reason you felt like a parent, because you got into creator consciousness. So you could see all the little children, that scenario, all of my children just trying, and you actually had that omnipresent sort of compassionate thing.
Oh yeah.
That's why you felt like you were the parent.
So powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And it's quite interesting because I've been talking to a few people about this method lately, and we were discussing Ho'oponopono. So when I was talking to people, it's like that works. So it does work, but the Ho'oponopono seems to work more for past situations. It doesn't, I can't, maybe it works really well for other people, but for the few people that I spoke to about the Ho'oponopono compared to this, and for myself, is that this seems more powerful for the here and now. Ho'oponopono does, it sort of kind of clears it, but for the past in a more effective way. Whereas this is more for the here and now. It feels like that. Does anyone else want to share or have a question? Loads of you got your videos off soon. Okay. So what I wanted to do now was to try one more, basically. So what we did there was like a general loving yourself one. So, but you could try, which I've also been trying, one where someone's exhibiting a specific behavior that is driving you nuts. So I'm just going to try and think of a specific, something, for example, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something specific. Can't think. Well, I'll just go back to the original. Let's just say someone's being super angry with you. So their specific behavior is anger. Oh no, let's pick something a bit more. Let's say someone's trying to control you. Okay. So they're really trying to be controlling. So what you're trying to do in this scenario is you're trying to acknowledge that you have that within you. Obviously, we don't deflect from that. But then what you're trying to do is you're trying to find in you all of the ways that you show up for yourself, which are not controlling. So basically the opposite of the thing that's driving you nuts, which is a better way to be. I'm trying to think what the opposite of not controlling is, but I can't think of the word. I'm just going to call it non-controlling. So you would go into the way that it's the opposite behavior in you. So let's say you're what's the opposite of controlling? I don't know. We'll just call it observing. I'm just trying to, I can't even think of the word. So you're trying to be observing rather than controlling, or accepting. That's the word. So all the ways that you're accepting. So you, again, it's the same process. You think about all the ways that you're accepting, allowing. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Allowing or accepting. So all the ways that you're allowing, basically, in your life, you allow others to be in situations, all of this kind of thing. And then, so you get specific here. And then when you go back, you start to look at all the ways that they're allowing. Not necessarily in the current scenario, but generally all the ways that they're allowing, even if they're little ways, you know. So you can use this scenario in very specific, to heal very specific things that you're holding within you, because you're admitting that you're holding these resonant frequencies. And this also works just really well. I mean, it's really amazing. You can actually target specific things. But of course, the truth is that the allowing is just a form of love, but it gives us a bit of a specific insight into ourselves and the other. And I think what Franco was alluding to earlier, and the thing about that compassion and seeing yourself as a parent, is you start to get insights about the other person, which means you're getting insights about yourself, which again opens your awareness and allows you to become more self-aware, more expanded in your perceptions, your energy field, and your ability to perceive the nature of reality. Okay, so let's do another one. I'm going to give you, so have a think about a specific behavior in someone that's driving you nuts. So name a specific behavior. I'm just going to think about one as well. Okay. Mine's stubbornness. It's going to be loads in me. Okay. Are you all ready? Give me a wave and a nod if you're ready and you found specific behavior. Okay, a few thumbs up. Great. So let's just do the whole thing again. So closing your eyes. And again, you're bringing up this person who's exhibiting a specific behavior that's driving you nuts. And so I want you to see all the details of their face, their actions, their words, their gestures pertaining to this specific behavior or specific scenario. You could choose a specific scenario in which this behavior is being exhibited. So once you've really got a visual on that, we're going to, again, bring your awareness to your heart center, hand on heart center if it's needed. And you're going to begin to feel and bring up and sense the way that you exhibit yourself or express yourself that's the opposite of that specific behavior. So beginning to allow yourself to perceive ways that you are the opposite to that, whilst acknowledging that, of course, you can exhibit those behaviors too. You're looking for the opposite one. In your thoughts, your words, your actions, in your relationship to others and scenarios, how is this opposite behavior showing up? And as you see and feel and go over how you bring forth this opposite behavior, you're also beginning to really thank yourself for doing that. How amazing of you to exhibit this opposite behavior in so many ways, little and big. Finding gratitude in your heart for yourself. And so now you bring up the image of the other person and you begin to see in them, in their habits, what they say, what they do, even if it's little things, how they exhibit that opposite behavior. Even if it was just once you saw it, just bring it up and notice. And as you do this, you are feeling so much gratitude towards them, that in little ways and sometimes big ways, they can exhibit this opposite behavior. And now you see that their behavior is reflected in your behavior, is reflected in their behavior. You're perfect mirrors for one another. And you're showing one another how you both have the ability to behave in these lovely ways. One is showing the other, is showing the other. And so now you give your thanks in some way. Thank you for being the perfect reflection of how I exhibit this behavior in my life. Thank you for being the perfect reflection of that for me. And then the moment that you feel the gratitude, you can just open your eyes and let it go. Such a beautiful practice. It just makes me feel like weeping. I just feel so grateful to these other people. Anyway, are there any questions about that?
Yeah, and I was feeling exactly the same, Sarita. I was like, oh, thank you. It was somebody different this time. And what was really beautiful about that was it reflected back a blind spot where I've been doing the same behavior with other people. And
Yeah.
I hadn't realized. And then all of a sudden I reached, there's another family member. They're the best teachers, my family, they really are. And I just kind of reached out across the quantum field to that other person, and it was just like, oh God, I love you even more. Thank you so much for showing me that.
Yeah.
And it's just really brought a lot of balance and peace into that underlying frustration I always have with that person. I love them to pieces, and I really do, but there's just this little one element, and I'm not going to say it in case she ever watches this video. Oh, just giving it away. It's my sister, basically. She's, I love her to pieces, but she's really terrible at keeping in touch, and promises that she's going to, and then never does. And she's always been like that, and it drives me effing crazy.
And
but
now
I've just
you've
realized
realized
that
you do the same.
I've like just with a couple of people in particular in my life who are good friends that I don't speak to that often, but I've just realized, oh my God, for this last one of them in particular, I've actually been doing it for the last 3 years without even realizing.
Yeah. That's the thing, you get these insights because it's you.
Yeah.
You suddenly go, oh, light bulb.
I'm like, oh geez, my
Yeah.
sister's me and I'm her. Oh my God. And that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Great.
And as you say, I was just like, oh, I love you, sis. Amazing.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing, Franco. Thank you. Does anyone else have a question or want to share? Yeah, Mara?
I just have a question. Like, if you don't see results immediately, it's okay to repeat like the same.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think you will. I mean, so I've been seeing really, really, really quick results with everyone. But I also think it's like manifesting it, the results depend on you. So, how, and Mara, I know I've done some of this work with you before in a private session and you saw results immediately. I remember that. It wasn't this, but it was a similar reflection thing. So, I said, you've got to hit that point where you genuinely, authentically feel how you've been loving to yourself or how you've done this. And that's the key, I think, because this can't be a pretend thing. You have to genuinely go, wow, gosh, I really do love myself. Gosh, thank you. Yes, I'm doing it. Like there has to be that real kind of genuineness about this. And I think that's the thing that makes the results so quick and instantaneous. And I think that kind of genuine authenticity comes from, well, being present, obviously, but showing up for the inner work, over and over and over again. So it's like with anything, which is why I use manifesting. If you genuinely believe it for one moment, it's done because you're the creator. So it really is about how remembering that the emotion is the driving force for energy to be squished into form, basically for wave to become particle. So it's a bit like that. So I really think in this case, it's that kind of, when you get that genuine emotion about how you've just done it, you really have loved yourself, even if it's just one tiny way. And you really feel that's what does it. But obviously the words of thank you for being the perfect reflection of how much I love myself. That's the difference, because it's your biofield. You're not trying to change theirs. You're just calling in a resonant frequency version that matches your biofield. So when we're back to everyone's trying to do the best for their highest good, you're not trying to change them. You're just bringing in a different version that matches you. If they've got, you know, infinite versions and 20 of them are, I don't know, doing awful things, that's fine. None of your business, really. You're pulling in the one that matches you. So, yeah. But yeah, I do, you know, it's good to repeat it if you need to. Yeah. Has that helped?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Yep, Judith.
It's not a question, it's just like, it's a testimony, and just to encourage Mara, that I did, when you posted your YouTube video, I did it immediately for my daughter because she was in limbo. She was driving me nuts, not knowing what to do with her life. And literally the next day after, she sorted her life out straight away. And in a whirlwind, he's packed up, he's now in uni, and it's like a completely different person. And I was gobsmacked.
Yeah.
So it was quite spectacular. So thank you so much. It's
well,
amazing.
that's like what happened to me with someone, same behavior for 35 years and then bang, overnight. I was like, whoa. Yeah.
So next time, trying it on my dog, would never respond to recall, see if he does. See if he comes back when I call him every time. Drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sarita. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or sharing? Okay. All right, great. So I would really like to put this up on YouTube, but I will wait 24 hours because obviously we've shared personal things. If one of you wants to send me an email and said, no, I don't want it up there, absolutely fine by me. It won't go up. But I will put it up on the Patreon site, and you all know each other anyway by now quite well, I think. So thank you so much for joining in. It was such beautiful work. Thank you for being here, and love you all. Have a beautiful rest of your day. And oh yeah, any YouTube people out there, if you want to come join us on Patreon, we do this kind of stuff live every week, and details in the description box. So thank you, everyone, and I'll see you next week. Lots of love.